What's up, GTM News listeners? Thanks for checking into this week's episode. This week's episode, like I've been doing in the past couple weeks, I'm pulling from an excerpt from a recent event I did on B2B inbound marketing. This excerpt is a conversation I had with Sam Winsbury, and we talked about founder branding and really thought leadership brands, right? Using your CEO, your founder, to ultimately create a brand, a personal brand around them to help elevate your company brand. And this is a tactic that's worked well for me, for my own business and for my own career, but also is really powerful for businesses in general, but especially in this world where people want an authentic connection with your brand. They can do that through people ultimately and gain to know your people and gain to know your CEO. So you're seeing that a lot where founders, CEOs, leaders in the organization are ultimately creating their own personal brand to elevate the corporate brand in general, but then also to further their career, etc. You can do this as an employee as well, right? As you can do a kind of employee advocacy. We've talked about this on the show before, but in this particular conversation, Sam kind of lays out the ideas of how to, as a founder, create a brand around your own personal brand to help elevate your company, drive more inbound, generate more sales, get introductions, organic content, PR, SEO, all that fun stuff. A lot of really powerful outcomes you can when you ultimately tap into your founder's brand. So let's tune into my conversation with Sam. What's going on, Sam?
Hey, Taylor. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Doing well. Well, first of all, I want to make a note that your background matches the virtual background we have here. So great branding all around. Thanks for making that happen. Even though I'm sure that wasn't intentional. Well, thanks, Sam. I know we only got a couple minutes here. I wanted you to come on because I've been following you on LinkedIn around really founder branding, personal branding in general. And I know your organization helps founders do personal branding. This has been a huge kind of movement over the past couple of years where folks have been investing in building relationships through their founders or subject matter experts or leaders in their organization to really humanize the brand on one level, but also tap into their expertise and for recruiting, for getting new customers. So lay it all out for us, Sam. Give me some of your high levels around what are some 2 to 3 takeaways for how to build a founder brand, personal branding in general.
Yeah, so a lot of what Rachel said tied into this really well, and it was so nice listening to that because hopefully this will help you dominate your channel, specifically LinkedIn. That's kind of where our bag is. There's kind of like a 3-stage process that we typically take people through, and 3 things that you really need to do if you want to get this right. First thing you've got to do if you want to build a strong founder brand is have strong positioning. So when I say positioning, what we mean is essentially being able to answer the question, why should people listen to you? There's thousands of people posting content every single day. Why out of those thousands should they essentially give you the time to stop and consume your content? So actually being able to answer that and to be able to add weight and substance behind the content you put out is really, really important. How do we do that? Well, we've got to get really clear on a couple of things. Firstly, our message. So that's kind of what actual reputation we want to build. What do we want people to think off the back of consuming our content? And what sort of things do we need them to think in order to fulfill our goals? So if our goals from our founder brand are commercial, for example, we want to acquire clients, we've got to be thinking about what kind of impression do I need to create for these people for them to see me as somebody worth investing their money in as a solution or a service provider. Second thing is your mission, which really is just your value proposition. So having a really strong value proposition where people actually see the value out of working with you, and there's a clear kind of transformation that you're going to take them through, both with your solution, but also the content you put out too. And then third and final thing for this is your credibility, right? So a lot of people posting content, I'm sure you guys have all come across a few people like this, putting an awful lot of information out, but when you actually dig deep, there's no real credibility on the back of it. So if you've got loads of creds, loads of milestones, results, make sure you lean on those. They're really, really important for adding weight to your content. A lot of people, when they build their personal brand, they're producing content. If it doesn't perform, they normally blame the content. Normally, content problems are just positioning problems in disguise. So that positioning piece is really, really important on the front end. Then when you do come to create content, it's going to be so much easier to almost like reverse engineer the pillars and the topics that you want to talk about, and you can share those and you'll generate far better results from them. In terms of amplifying it, so there's 3 main channels we look at for amplifying a founder brand. organic social, which is content, PR and media, which is great for again, elevating authority and credibility, and then ads, which is, pay to play, but a little bit more scalable if you've got that to invest. So those are the kind of three core channels we look to amplify a brand through.
Very cool. I'd love to, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about the PR, and I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into that. What are some of your strategies? What are some things that you've noticed work for tapping? I know SEO is, and we're going to have Brendan later on talk about SEO, but I'd love to hear from your thought point, getting founders out there. Any takeaways there? Any things you've learned you can share with the audience?
Yeah. So the thing I love about PR, right, is that, on social, right, everyone can post on social. Anyone can go and post on LinkedIn tomorrow, which is a great thing. It's accessible, but it also means anyone can post, right? But it sounds harsh to say, but not everybody is worth being featured in the media. Not everybody is worthy of being interviewed on a podcast. So like appearing on other people's podcasts is a great way. Not everybody is worth a feature in, Forbes or Inc.com or Wall Street Journal. Not everyone is worthy of that feature because there's a very selective process for that. So if you do manage to land one of those features, the more high profile it is, the more authority you get from that because you're seen as somebody worth interviewing. And there's just a mindset flick that kind of happens in a prospect's mind there where they go, this person is like one of the best in the industry. People are coming to them for advice. So that's really, really like the value of PR. And in terms of how you actually land it, remember that these editors, these podcast hosts, they're looking for guests. They're looking for people to feature all the time. Their whole business is content production. They need to be producing content that serves their audience. They don't have a business unless they produce content that their audience enjoys. So the easiest way to land these features is essentially to give them the content that they need, that their audience want, right? So rather than just kind of spamming out loads and loads of pitches to random people, be a little bit more tailored. I would take a quality over quantity approach to this and be much more tailored in the pitch that you create. Either give them the topic or give them the piece of content and say, look, I've done some research. I know your audience liked this topic, and this topic. We've just written a piece on XYZ, or I think we could run a podcast where we talk about these three things, and I think it would really help your audience. That's a surefire way to get into an editor or hosts or a journalist's good books.
I love it, Sam. That's great. Yeah, for my podcast, I know almost daily I get podcast agencies reaching out to me to book their folks, and I haven't said yes to one, mostly because they don't meet that criteria, right? Either they don't. Kind of the two things I look for. Number one are, do they have a topic, like you said, content that's just like really unique, a really unique point of view, content that's really relevant to my audience. So the guests, the folks I have on my show are that, or and hopefully they have both. Or they have influence, right? They're already, like you said, they've already been on other shows. They have an audience already that's going to help amplify and provide credibility to the content. Super interesting. So obviously we talked about you mentioned how to create content on the front end. We talked about kind of the three distribution channels or ways to distribute content. I'd love to kind of, in the last minute or two, any common mistakes you see like a founder starting out in that you can help them avoid when they're kind of going through this evaluation, because it's a lot of work. First of all, creating content. Obviously they can partner with somebody like you to amplify and to get them started, but in the absence of that, what kind of advice would you give folks?
Yeah, so I'd actually say make sure that the almost back end of your founder brand and your business is laid out really well. Some things that might relate to specifically your LinkedIn profile, really important thing. Even things like if you have funnels or website in place, like make sure those are watertight, because what I see a load of people doing, which is a huge mistake, is putting so much time and effort into creating content. And that content might be really, really good, but then they don't actually end up seeing any real commercial benefit or monetary value from the content. And it's because although that content might be quite good, actually what's happening on the back end is that people are landing on their profile after consuming a piece on LinkedIn, and they've got no idea what they do. They've got no idea how to take the next step towards working with them. They've got no idea what the value proposition is or why they're credible. It's just not clear. And it's the same with, you could think about it in the same way with funnels and lead magnets. Like if your funnel isn't watertight, or if your website has typos all over it, like it's these kind of basic things that people really evaluate your credibility on, and ultimately people use to make the decision to work with you. These things have to be watertight. I liken it to the example of taking someone on a date. If you're producing really high quality content It's like taking a date to the fanciest restaurant in town. You put on your best clothes, you spend a bomb on the meal, and you impress them on the front end. You're lucky enough to bring them back to your place. They get back to your place and there's clothes on the floor, there's plates on the side, like the house is a tip, right? So that's kind of what a lot of people are doing in their content. So I'd say make sure your house is on order before you focus on getting the front end good.
Great advice, Sam. It even ties in with what Rachel was saying as far as understanding your business objectives, making sure the entire almost go-to-market strategy, making sure that it fits in well and it's all tied in perfectly. Well, thanks, Sam, so much for coming on. Really great insights. Thank you much. Really appreciate your time.